Hey everyone, welcome. We're the You Need Faith in Jesus team, and today we are diving into Psalm 67. And let me tell you, this is one of the most mission-focused songs in the entire Bible. It's got this really radical idea right at its core. So let's get into it. So let me just kick this off with a question that gets right to the heart of the psalm. What if all the blessings in your life, your health, your job, your family, what if they aren't actually just for you? What if they were meant to be a signpost, pointing the whole world back to God? It's a huge idea, and it's exactly what we're about to unpack. So here's what we're going to walk through. We'll look at this ancient song's purpose, unpack the prayer for God's presence, and then see this amazing idea of being blessed to be a blessing. We'll talk about a joyful, just kingdom, see how this is a global harvest song, and finally figure out how we can actually live this out today. Okay, first things first, let's set the stage a little. This wasn't just some private poem someone scribbled down. The title itself tells us it was written for public worship in the temple. This was a song meant for all of God's people to sing out loud together. And get this, that little word in the title, neganoth, that tells us this was a full-blown musical production. It means it was meant to be sung with stringed instruments, like harps and lyres, and led by the chief musician, the person in charge of all the temple music. This was meant to be a powerful, corporate declaration. All right, so let's dive into that opening verse and see how this thing builds. And notice how it starts. It doesn't jump right into asking for stuff. It starts with a really deep, profound desire for a right relationship with God himself. Okay, so the writer lays out three really specific requests here. First, mercy, which is God's favor that we absolutely don't deserve. Second, bless us, asking for God's active goodness to be poured out on their lives. And third, cause his face to shine upon us. What a beautiful picture. That's asking for God's very presence and his personal approval. It's all about relationship first and foremost. And this is so cool. This prayer isn't just pulled out of thin air. The psalmist is actually quoting the famous priestly blessing from the book of Numbers. He's taking a promise God already made and praying it right back to him. Talk about a powerful way to pray, right? You're literally reminding God of his own word. So you've got to be asking, why? Why ask for God's mercy, his blessing, his presence? Is it just for personal comfort? For prosperity? Well, verse 2 comes in with this just stunning answer that totally flips our expectations on their head. And here it is, the absolute heart of the psalm. The blessing is for a mission. The prayer is, God, bless us so that the whole world can see your character, your ways, and your salvation. The idea is that our blessed lives, they're supposed to be like a giant advertisement for how good God is, pointing everyone, everywhere straight to him. And you have to see this. Let's zoom in on that phrase, thy saving health. The original Hebrew word there is Yeshua. It means salvation, but it's also the root of the most important name in all of history, Yeshua or Jesus. So this Old Testament prayer is literally asking that God's salvation, his Jesus, would be made known among all the nations. I mean, how amazing is that? It's just breathtaking. What this really shows us is that the Great Commission didn't just pop up out of nowhere in the New Testament. See, the heart of God for all people wasn't a new idea. It's been there all along, woven right into the fabric of the entire Bible, from ancient songs like this one all the way to the final commands of Christ. So once that mission is laid out, the psalm just explodes into this incredible chorus. But it doesn't just command praise, it gives a powerful reason why every single nation has a reason to be glad and worship. And this right here is the great chorus of the song. It's this passionate cry for universal worship. The writer's vision is just massive. He's not just thinking about his own people, but for all people from everywhere to join in the song of praise to God. But why? Why should all the nations be glad? Well, look at the reason given. Because God will judge and govern with perfect righteousness. Think about it. In a world that is just so full of corruption, injustice, and broken leadership, the promise of a king who rules with perfect, unbending fairness, that is a reason for some serious, explosive joy. His government means all wrongs will finally be made right. So the psalm brings back that chorus, but then it makes this really fascinating connection. It shows us what happens when the world finally turns to God in praise. And the result? Well, it's a kind of harvest. So we hear the chorus again, but this time it hits different, doesn't it? It's even more powerful. And why is that? Because we've just been reminded of God's perfect justice. The more we understand who God is, the deeper and more passionate our worship becomes. It's a response that just keeps building as the reasons for our praise get clearer and clearer. So, what is the result? What happens when this global wave of praise finally erupts? The psalmist links this incredible spiritual event to a very physical reality, when humanity's relationship with God is finally set right. Creation itself actually responds. Then shall the earth yield her increase. This reflects a principle you see all through the Old Testament, like in Leviticus 26:4, where the fruitfulness of the land was directly tied to the people's obedience. This psalm just blows that idea up to a global scale. When humanity is rightly aligned with its creator, creation itself begins to heal and flourish. All right, we're coming to the end of the psalm now, and it wraps up with this confident declaration that brings us right back to where we started, showing us exactly how to make this ancient song our personal mission for today. You see how the song just comes beautifully full circle? It starts with a prayer for blessing, and it ends with the absolute assurance that God shall bless us. And for what purpose? So that all the ends of the earth shall fear him. Not a terrified kind of fear, but a reverent awe and worship. It's so clear. Our blessing is the means, and global worship is the ultimate end. Okay, so what does this actually look like for us today? How do we live this out? Well, first, we pray for God's presence before we ask for anything else. Second, we start to see every blessing not as something to keep for ourselves, but as a tool for witness. Third, our worship should be filled with this desire for the rest of the world to join in. Fourth, we can have real joy, even in a crazy, unjust world, because we trust in God's ultimate righteous government. And finally, the whole goal is to just live a life that makes other people want to know the God we know. So let's end right where we began. This psalm teaches us that our lives are meant to be evidence of God's goodness to a watching world. So the final question is for you to really think about. What does the world see when they look at your life?